I am going to pass the floor over to my dear friend, Brian Murray. Brian Murray has been a rigger for eons and also very active in our sport, wingsuiter, skydiver, instructor, so much to his resume out there. And Brian, I'm just going to find you, or can you find him and add him as a host, Gord? And you can make him a co-host. Oh, sorry. I'm going to unshare my screen here. Or actually, sorry. Sorry, guys. It's been a while since I did a Zoom meeting for all of this. So give me a second. I'm going to unshare my screen. No, we're good. All right, Brian Murray, you should be unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Okay, so I don't have screen really slides to share or anything. I'm just going to talk about a few things. Two main items I want to talk about. First one is packing. Obviously on Zoom, we can't really do demos of packing very well. And I go way over my 10 minutes anyway. I don't want to talk about the whole pack job, but a few things that when we teach packing, we tend to teach, you know, a sequence of steps that you kind of learn by rote without always knowing exactly the whys or what's important and what isn't. And so a few things that just kind of touch on what some of the more important things are. A saying I really like that I learned probably, you know, more than 20 years ago was that when you're packing, you pack the lines, not the canopy. And I really like that because most of the things you're going to do that are going to cause problems or cause things with the lines and not the actual fabric. You know, like a line over is a line in the wrong place. You know, in most of those, a lot of those malfunctions, if you've got your lines nice and clear and straight right up the center, fabric on the outside, good tension on your lines throughout, you've got the makings of a really good pack job that's going to work well for you. Brake stowed, of course, at the beginning of the pack job. Stow the excess of your brakes. You know, when you leave that little loop just hanging out, and I'm guilty of that in the past. It's, you know, it's you get away with it 1,000 times, and then one day it's going to tie a knot around your toggle or around your hand as you reach for it, or get caught up in the slider. If you don't have somewhere on your risers to stow that, you can either get a rigger to sew something on there, or you can even put a little bit of elastic somewhere on the riser, make a little loop that you can stow those in. So like I said, lines nice and straight, centered, keep good tension on them. Slider against the stops is the next key point that I want to really focus on, because we get the slider up against the stops on the canopy. You cocoon the canopy, then you S-fold it and fabric starts sliding everywhere, especially if you got a new canopy and you're struggling to get the thing in the bag and the slider's crept 3 inches down your lines. But hey, you got it in the bag, and now when it's coming out of the bag, your slider is starting off partway down the lines already, which can lead to hard openings. The slider's not working as effectively as it could if it's all the way up. So really try to keep that slider up against the stops. When you roll the tail, if you roll it really tight right up at the top, right where the slider is, that'll help just control it so it can't slide down the lines. Line stows, again, back to the lines, right? Neatness counts on these. You know, if you've got big loops of spaghetti everywhere, that's where you start getting, you know, tension knots or loops of, you know, bites looping over another bite and causing you bag locks. So nice and neat, good tension on your stows. It should take a bit of tension to pull your stows out of the bag as well. You know, if they're just really loose and you can pull with not much tension on the bag and everything flops out, then those stows aren't doing their job very well. You know, PD says about 12 pounds of force minimum to extract them. Generally considered better to go for larger elastics and double stow them than to use smaller ones and single stow them, because you'll get a better grip on the lines and help prevent line dump or bag strip. Yeah, and speaking of stow, of your line stows, your elastics. The job of the elastic is to keep the line attached to the bag until the line between that stow and the riser gets under tension and gets the line stretch, at which point it gets pulled out. So if you've got a line that's, or an elastic that's almost broken, you know, that when the pilot chute jerks that bag off your back, that elastic's going to break and just dump the lines everywhere, and you got a huge mess just waiting to grab your main canopy or your main container flaps or other lines or who knows what. I've done the thing where it's like, oh, I think I could pack very gingerly so this elastic doesn't break and I can get it in. And my point is that it's not, the elastic isn't there to keep the lines in place while you pack it. It's to keep them in place while it unpacks. So if you've got an elastic that's looking like it's going to go, just take the hit, replace it early, and you're going to save yourself potentially some problems. Caulking the pilot chute, kind of an obvious one, but hey, lots of people have forgotten that one. And the bridle routing as well is something I like to touch on. And you can do this as part of your gear check as well. If you're checking your bridle routing, you should be able to pull your bridle out from under the flap you've tucked it under and follow that bridle from the pin all the way to the BOC where the pilot chute goes. If you can't do that and it's going around a flap, you've got that routed wrong, and you got a pilot chute in tow waiting to happen. That's about all the points I wanted to talk about on packing. Like I said, just touching on some key points. I'm trying to stay under my time. The other main area I wanted to talk about was gear maintenance. And beginning of the season, everybody takes your rig to your rigger. You get a full inspection. Everything's in great shape. Anything that was wrong has been repaired. And Yahoo, you're ready to go for the season. But now you're going to jump the crap out of that rig for 6 months, and nobody's going to look at it other than you. And that's when stuff starts to wear and starts going wrong, and nobody's looking at it. So take a look at it once in a while. You know, you don't necessarily need to be doing a big inspection every pack job or every day even, but you know, look at stuff as you're packing it. Keep your eyes open. You know, every once in a while, you know, maybe last patch job of the day, or take it home unpacked during the week, and have a look over some things. Just general condition, you know, the fabric, the stitching, if you see stitches coming out or anything getting frayed or fuzzy. You know, hardware as well, if you start seeing rust or corrosion or anything like that. Velcro, and a lot less Velcro than we used to have. We don't have Velcro toggles or riser covers very much anymore, but if you do check those, you still got Velcro on these guys, right? So if that Velcro is getting really old and weak, and you know, half your jumps, your reserve handle is flopping around when your canopy opens, that's a really easy repair to do. You know, get that to a rigger, even mid-season, it doesn't matter. Like, I can do that with the reserve in. It takes half an hour and you got nice new Velcro. Stiffeners as well, you know, the stiffeners on your flaps crack, it starts poking holes through the corridor, through the fabric if you don't get that repaired. Grommets, you know, if you see grommets start pulling out, and you got grommets on the flaps, the ones that you're going to see start pulling out are commonly on the D bag, both on the where your line stows go. There's also a grommet on the bottom of the bag that your bridle goes through. So you see those start pulling out. Again, really easy repair, and it's going to save you trouble down the road. BOC pocket, supposed to be stretchy. If it's not stretchy, get a new one. Again, pretty easy repair. And you know, having a pilot chute come out at 8,000 feet and a head down or something, it's going to suck a lot more than getting a new VOC. Where am I on my list here? Kind of going just off the top of my head. High wear points. You know, some that I've touched on, like the grommets on your D-bag. Pilot chute, you know, pin attachment point. You know, I've seen those starting to come off, and if that rips off, you got a pilot chute in tow, and the pin's just sitting there by itself in the closing loop. As well as the bridle where it attaches to the D-bag. Look right inside the D-bag, there's a little metal link or a soft link or something there. That gets chewed up by the metal link or by the kill line. So keep an eye on that. You can see that one when you're packing pretty easily. Handle attachment as well, and also the kill line on your pilot chute. The kill line is going to shrink over time. It's generally made of spectra, so it gets shorter and shorter, and now your pilot chute doesn't collapse properly. On your main canopy, your bridal attachment point is a high wear point. Steering lines. So lines in general, of course, most people probably know, but your lines don't last forever. Every however many 100 jumps, we cut the lines off, put new ones on, and keep jumping the canopy. Brake lines wear out a lot faster because every time you go like this with a toggle, you're pulling that through that little metal guide ring and back up again. It's going back and forth and back and forth. So a lot of friction on that, gets a lot of wear, starts getting really fuzzy. I stole this line from Rob Warner, but if it looks as fuzzy as my cat, it's time to replace it. And you can replace just the lower brake lines without doing a full reline. So it's not even a lot of money or anything. Untwisting on the top of brake lines, when you pack them, your brake lines get twisted up because you land in the packing area, you had a great jump, you drop your toggles and you're sitting there doing this and you get twisted up brake lines. And I'm really bad for that. You don't need to do this every pack job, but it's like I like to last pack job of the day or last pack job of the weekend when I'm not in a rush to make the next load. Follow them down from the canopy, untwist them. You take a piece of Spectra using your brake line and start twisting it up, and it starts doing this and gives you tension knots. And these things are just waiting to grab another line and hold on to it and not let go until after you cut away and there's no more tension on it. And I've cut away a couple of those on one of my own gear on tandem rigs a long time ago, but they're no fun. Really simple fix. Like I said, once a day, once a week, and suspension line condition as well as a whole, just all of your suspension lines. And the outer lines are going to get the worst of it because they get the most friction from the slider. They start getting pretty fuzzy. Again, probably might want to start thinking about a reline. And talking about tension knots on the brake lines and on the main lines. The fuzzier those lines get, the more prone they are to that as well. So twisted up lines and fuzzy lines, they don't slide as well. So you just want to grab onto each other. Another point people don't normally think about is where the line attaches to your links, right at the top of your riser. You got either a metal link or the soft link. Often there's a slider bumper or a little fabric hat over it that keeps it kind of hidden and out of view. And I've seen a lot of those starting to wear and getting ready to break when the rest of the lines look good. So every once in a while, just push that little fabric hat or that bumper up, have a peek underneath, and just make sure everything looks okay. And the slider is another high wear point. Again, just have a quick peek once in a while, stitching, looking for holes, and grommets as well, tearing out. Risers in general, as well, just general condition, just like your lines, they're a consumable item. They wear out, and time to, if you're getting a reline or after a reline or two, probably time to start thinking about new risers. I've got an old pair I jumped for a long time that are incredibly fuzzy. Check out the grommet as well. Those can start pulling out, which is not a great thing to have on your riser. That's part of your cutaway system. So it's a pretty important part. That little white loop as well on your riser, that the one that goes through the small ring and the yellow cable goes through it. Have a peek at that once in a while. That's can get abraded fairly easily and get some strands started to tear. At which point if that breaks, you're going to have one side let go. That's caused usually, by the way, by dragging your rig when you pack. So dragging the rig, I'm not a fan of it. It does that to your white loop as well as the risers, the harness, the container. Everything's getting pulled across the packing area, hundreds or thousands of times, and it takes its toll. If you do want to drag, get a drag mat, get a packing mat. It drags with the rig and it protects your rig. Otherwise, move the bag to the rig, then you don't need to worry about that white loop so much. I've got Velcro down under risers. Like I said, not a lot of Velcro left on risers these days, but if you do have it, again, something to take a peek at once in a while and just make sure it's holding on okay. Closing loop is kind of my last one. And this is a bit of a pet peeve of mine. You see people, it's kind of like the same as the rubber bands. It's like, oh, I get it, it'll last one more pack job. It's just, the absolute worst time for that thing to break is not in the packing area when you're trying to make a load. It's when you're climbing out the door and that closing loop breaks and your pilot chute goes over the tail and takes down the whole plane or something. You know, if you see any significant amount of wear on it, you know, they cost a few pennies and take a few seconds to replace. So, you know, if in doubt, replace it early, replace it often. You know, it's the simplest, easiest, quickest maintenance you'll ever do on your rig. Yeah, you know, if it breaks when you're packing it, you waited way too long. That's about it for what I have. So basically just keep an eye on the gear throughout the packing season. Big thing, parting thought, you know, if you see something on your rig, you see something on somebody else's rig, you know, and you're not sure about it, ask somebody who knows, ask a rigger, ask, you know, somebody more experienced, ask, you know, whoever you know that you may have the answers. If you're unsure, you know, sometimes I get people saying, oh my God, I got something horribly wrong with my gear. And you look and go, oh, that's just this, it's not a big deal. You know, sometimes it's something that needs attention. So just ask when you see something and make sure just you got to get that peace of mind to make sure your gear is still in good shape. That's about it, unless I've got any questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian. So I will
welcome.
open up the floor to anyone who has questions. If you're not familiar with Zoom, on the bottom, there's a little reactions. You can put that open and there's a little spot that says raise your hand and then a hand goes up. We will recognize that once we've answered your question to the best of our ability. You can go back in there and lower your hand. So on that note, does anyone have any questions for Brian? I don't see any hands at this time. We're looking pretty good.
I was either really good or really boring.
Now it's rigging. Come on, you make it as exciting as it can be.
Yeah,
and just so you
try
guys
to do
know,
it in 10 minutes.
Anytime that anyone needs a closing loop, elastics, yeah, come to Manifest. We've got lots of them. I think we have a big bowl of elastics out for packing area. So no excuses for those really nasty closing loops. Awesome. Well, thank you again very much, Brian.